So New Game Plus gives a lot of reasons to continue playing Stellar Blade. We have dozens of extra nano suits, new skills, higher difficulty, and even more progression. But there's also a huge map before finishing the game that's also completely missable if you skip out on your affinity with one of the main companions. So today we'll check all of these out, including how to unlock these extra levels, of course, while trying to keep spoilers at a minimum. So let's get started with the changes, because as soon as you finish the main story, whichever of the 3 endings you get, you're going to immediately unlock that New Game Plus mode, plus the hard difficulty, which is going to be a lot more challenging than anything before that. But besides this, here are some of the goodies that we get. So one of them is going to be this awesome Raven Nano suit. So this unlocks in New Game Plus mode. It's really awesome and definitely one of my favorites, and I can see why a lot of players actually like this. But it's awesome to see it in cutscenes, and you can pretty much use it from this point on. But besides this, in terms of nano suits, we get to unlock 35 additional ones in our New Game Plus playthrough, and most of them are actually recolors that you get from the same chest that you did in your first playthrough. I do, however, have a couple of problems with this. One is that you kind of have to recraft the recolor variants, and second of all, they all get separate entries in the nano suit list. So if you go for even more, up to like the 75 plus you get in the second playthrough, that means you have to shift and scroll through a lot of nano suits in your inventory, which kind of becomes annoying. So I wish we had access to these recolors from the suits we already unlocked, but yeah, that's how it is right now. However, our drone and some of the other companions also gain additional cosmetics to unlock in the New Game Plus mode, like for example recolors and some other cool stuff in there too. But speaking of other items, we of course also have a bunch of them at vendors too. So first of all, any vendor that previously sold nano suits, and assuming that you bought them, will now sell their recolor variants. So for example, Roxanne, Lyle's shop, and so on will have those recolors as well. I also checked out some of the other items, and they also sell MK2 versions of the items they previously sold. So these are much more improved, and MK2 is what you're going to find in New Game Plus. So let's talk a bit about the MK2 variant of the gear and the nano spines that you get. These are much stronger, and they will feature much stronger effects than before. So they still drop from the same sources, be it treasure chests or just vendors, but yeah, the difference here is quite big. So going, for example, over the camouflage type exospine, the MK1, or the one you got in your first playthrough, gave us 17.5% in terms of extra damage and about 15% max HP regen. However, the MK2 gives us 25 and 22.5 respectively for those two. And some of these differences can go even higher. So let's say, for example, you go for the speed gear, like one of the first you get on your way to the Gigas boss on ADOS 7. So this is actually going to be 13% compared to just the 10, which is quite close to the 3-star variant of it that you get in the end game. And of course, these changes can be exponentially better and better for the 3-star variants that eventually you're going to get. Speaking of getting better, there are some changes to upgrading Eve as well. So for example, you can continue increasing the attack power of your sword with the weapon cores that you get, but eventually once you pass that 1000 threshold, which is also going to give you the achievement for the perfect stat, you're going to further increase the damage on it by 10 damage each time. So yes, it will take a while before you actually see some significant gains. Another one is for the tumbler, which you can of course continue to find modules for and upgrade, which instead is going to now increase its effectiveness. So assuming that you're already maxed out on the number of charges, the next thing you will upgrade for it is its effective healing. So how much of your HP it's going to heal, which you will definitely need because you're now going to be able to gain the beta and the body cores again from the same sources. However, the change is that you will need 4 of them per level of upgrade. However, it's still going to be just as big as before percentage wise, so you will gain quite a bit of extra max HP and also one of those, well, squares of max BE when you get 4 of them. And finally, the other change in terms of progression, and probably the bigger one, is going to be the upgrade to the drone and your skill tree. So you're going to gain additional passives to invest points into in New Game Plus. And specifically, definitely go with the upgrades for the shockwave like Infinity Wave and all of those. They will actually make it even better, and it was already the best ability in the entire game. Not only the damage on it, but also the third hit, if you had the upgrade for that, would constantly stun and put enemies on their backs. And yes, that includes even the biggest bosses. But you can also go with the burst upgrades, like Tempest is one of my favorites, but you can of course go with whichever you like most. There are some other smaller changes in there too, like for example, I noticed that there are extra enemies in previous areas that didn't have them before. Not all of them, and for some of the bigger areas you're not going to notice a difference because there were plenty to begin with, so maybe 1 to extra enemies per specific zones. Besides that, you can also skip cutscenes. This is definitely useful. Some of the early on cutscenes were unskippable, so this is going to make completion of your second playthrough even faster. Now, before you actually jump into the final stages of the story and going to Spire 4, I recommend first leveling up and maxing out that affinity with Lily, because this is going to give you access to Eidos 9, that massive city I was talking about, and this one actually has so many collectibles, including weapon and tumbler upgrades, but also extra nano suits. So there are a few ways in which you can further progress your affinity with Lily. One of them is by just progressing through the story. However, that's not going to be anywhere near enough. So here's what you're going to want to do. First of all, you're going to want to complete any side mission that involves her. So this includes early on examples such as Taboo, Looking at You, or even Fallen Angel a bit later on in the Great Desert. Typically, they provide about 10% each in terms of affinity increase, but besides this, interacting with memory sticks, documents, or even collecting cans further helps a ton with that progression. And you can of course see that progression on the top right corner of the screen whenever you do or collect something that increases that for you. Unfortunately, there's no other way to do so, so just try to go and have a more completionist approach to the gameplay. But once you're maxed out, you can now progress naturally through the story, so you can go ahead and talk to Adam to progress to Spire 4. Don't worry about choosing the dialogue option to go with him there, because as soon as you do that, Lily will intervene and tell you about Eidos 9, assuming that your affinity with her is at max. And once you do that, in the next dialogue, you're going to have the option to travel there right here at the top, which is what I recommend doing right away. Now, once you're here, you will have a bunch of objectives, the main one being defeating 9 of these enemy cocoons that are in different sectors. So it starts with 3 and then the final 6 ones in the second area. However, on the way, you will find a lot of resources and a lot of modules, like weapon and other upgrades in there will definitely help you a ton in the final encounters. So definitely do that. There's quite a few boss fights here that you can take part in for some extra weapon cores. But besides this, there's also 3 extra nano suits that you can get. So let's check them out. So the first one is going to be the Planet Diving Suit 6th, which is something that you can also get by pre-ordering the game, but if you didn't or just missed it when you hit Cyan, you can get it from here. So as you defeat the second cocoon in the first area at this rooftop, you're going to go to this gap and then jump on the street level. Here, pay attention to this building with the many pillars, which is also slightly inclined. You will want to jump over the water on the other side, but careful not lingering too long in the water, as that can actually drown you. From here, go to the left side of the building and using this pillar, gain access to the rooftop. Simply head over there and here you will see that there is one door that is opened. Go inside of it. At the end of it, there's going to be a chest and this gives you that suit. If you already have that, it's only going to give you some of those Vit coins. Now for the next one, you're going to get the Punk Top suit, which is at the bottom of the parking garage building that you will gain access to a bit later on. So you will reach this area right here that's currently locked. So what you have to do is to use the downstairs to go beneath and then gain access above it and head to the rooftop. However, as you make your way on it and eventually gain access to this outer ledge, instead of going to the right, go to the left and descend down. Eventually, this will bring you to a platform that you can use to gain access to this chest, which if you open is going to give you the Punk Top suit recipe. And finally, there's the Motivation Nano suit, which you get after clearing out all the cocoons, especially the 6 ones in the second area. So once you do that, just follow the main objective. You're going to have to take down a red slide, and instead of jumping over to the other side, continue down the red slide until its end, which is going to bring you to this area with a bunch of enemies. Defeat them, but pay attention to the small building in the back, as on top of it, you're going to find another chest with that, of course, item inside. So not only will you have gotten these awesome suits for you, but yeah, you probably are also much closer to that platinum trophy, especially since you're going to need to max out some of your weapon and tumbler cores before you actually gain those perfect achievements. But that is pretty much it. Of course, let me know down below if there's anything I missed. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.